Hey, good to see you all. It's time for me to share what cool new things I've added to the game since the last video. If you're here for the first time and want to know what it's all about, you might want to see this playlist of other Alchemist devlogs. But let us get to the features. As I've mentioned in the last video, I started working on new areas where it would make sense to find alchemical knowledge. And that's exactly what we can find now. Certain recipes are now unavailable at the start and instead obtained by reading special texts that you can find in various places. Each text gives you a random recipe that you don't yet know. The unlockable recipes are as follows: Potion of the Gecko, Hush Incense, Essence of Rust, and Shockwave Potion. Each of those lets you overcome certain obstacles that start appearing in more difficult dungeons. Potion of the Gecko allows you to stick to the walls for some time, which lets you traverse over bottomless chasms that can be encountered at the lowest levels of the dungeons. Aside from serving as obstacles, they have a lot of cool interactions. You can throw objects into the pit. You can disable your enemies and then push them off the edge. You can also swap positions using the Rift Potion, so that they appear over the pit and fall down. I knew this swap mechanic was going to have a fun use like this at some point. Also, flying creatures like bats that normally have no trouble with pits fall to their deaths if stunned, and of course so do you if your potion runs out. You might have noticed a new component in this recipe, something Telluric. It's an ingredient related to earth, and it comes from grains, roots, mushrooms, etc. Hush Incense is a potion, or rather a powder, that muffles your footsteps, which in addition to sound change, causes the creatures to notice you at closer distance. Essentially, it gives you an extra turn to notice others before they notice you. But that's not the full extent of its effect, as some creatures rely exclusively on sound to track you, and to those you become effectively invisible. Those gargoyle statues can be encountered in the mentioned ruins, another magical artifact meant to protect the treasures. Up to 4 can be in a room, depending on its size. Whenever they hear your footsteps, they shoot fireballs at you. The fireballs deal less damage than normal, so they probably won't kill you immediately, but they are still quite dangerous. However, as gargoyles react specifically to your footsteps, they will ignore you if you stay still or move silently thanks to the aforementioned potion. There are other ways to deal with them, of course, like destroying the statues, blocking their line of fire, or just avoiding the room, but Hush and Sense are the most reliable. Essence of Rust is your weapon against metal objects. I think our sound designer made this sound using a can of soda and creaking metal. It will corrode almost anything made of metal and either destroy or weaken it, like those iron bars that now block some of the passages in old forts. But it can also destroy metal chains on the walls or melt a door's lock, though that will still trigger whatever traps there are. It can also remove locks on chests, while rusting their contents. Rust is a usable component, but it's probably less valuable than coins or jewelry. It also works against metallic enemies, specifically animated armors. Corrosion deals damage to them and also slows them down. Shockwave Potion has existed in the game before, as a way to either stun enemies or destroy walls. However, I've decided that destroying all kinds of walls is way too strong, so now it's limited to objects made of wood, glass or crystal. Stone and metal are unaffected. I mention crystal specifically because of rooms like this that are overgrown by crystal. Tiny fractured crystals on the floor can be gathered, medium ones can be broken by hand, but large ones require a Shockwave Potion to be destroyed. It's possible that the room can be traversed without the need for Shockwave, but there is no guarantee, and you might need a potion for such a possibility. The ability to stun creatures can also be useful, and this one remains unchanged. The idea for the unlock system is that while in lower tier areas, you unlock certain recipes that let you deal with challenges of the higher tiers. Recipes can have other uses, and challenges can have alternative solutions, but at least I can be sure that the player will at least have certain tools at certain points in the game, and free to design the challenges with them in mind. Now that I have the mechanic of unlocks, the next step is creating the content to support it. I want there to be at least 4 tier 1 areas and as many of tier 2. You've already seen the burnt house of the mage, now I'd like to show the new area that I've been working on for the rest of the month. The story is as follows. There's been a pretty ordinary farm, until something unspecified happened, which caused the farmer to abandon his house. Looters that visited the place either didn't return or were terrified and unable to say anything coherent. So the place is untouched, and supposedly there is something creepy going on. The farm is a pretty large area. The surface contains the house, the barn and the field, And there is also the cellar, that's basically a small dungeon. What actually happened in the farm varies. There are 3 possibilities, and I'd like to explore each one separately. Needless to say, within each possibility there is a lot of additional variation in the result of procedural generation. You might arrive at the abandoned farm to see it burnt and destroyed. Walls are ruined and there are scorch marks everywhere, but mainly around the house building. When you descend into the basement, you see it just as ruined as the surface, and also the answer to the question of what was the cause: clouds of explosive gas. They are highly volatile and will ignite not only from large fires, but even when you enter a cloud with a torch in your hands, or ignite a wall torch. This will cause a massive chain reaction of explosions, which can be deadly. But it's also probably the easiest way to deal with gas in the end, because it's not only volatile, but also unbreathable. Unlike poison clouds, it doesn't immediately poison you, instead causing nausea at first, and only when your nausea gets too strong, it turns into poisoning. Having traversed the place, you'll find an abandoned lab, just as ruined as everything else, with some components and an old alchemical treatise, a book that contains a random recipe, just like Mage's notes. One can conclude that it's the farmer's dabbling in alchemy that caused the clouds of gas, and he probably left the place before the explosion happened. Or maybe you'll see the farm without any traces of fire, and walls only a little damaged from neglect and time passed. Instead, in this case, it's all overgrown by various plants. Speaking of which, there are 2 new plants now, potatoes and nettle. Potatoes are pretty obvious, you can just gather them from the abandoned field. Nettle can also be harvested, but touching it would make your hands itch, unless you wear gloves. It also causes itch if you walk through it. The effect is close to harmless, but relevant enough to at least watch where you step. Nettle is abundant here no matter what, but in this case it's not just nettle that grows around. Walls are almost entirely covered in moss and ivy. And when you descend, you still see the abundant vegetation, despite very little light. In addition, a red-colored specimen of ivy appears throughout the basement. Some of the plants are docile, just strangely colored, but others are active, and they thirst for your blood. If you approach the ivy, it will grab you, preventing you from moving, and start to strangle you. Every turn it either deals damage or drains your health. While the plant isn't very strong, if you're unlucky, it can be pretty dangerous, and if you get grabbed by 2 at once, you're unlikely to beat them with your bare hands. Though I am not going to pretend that melee combat was ever meant to be a valid option. Ivy is of course immobile, and can generally be avoided, and fire damage of any kind destroys it immediately. Similar to regular plants, it only covers one side of the wall. It's also only interactable when fully visible, so right now, when you can only see a little bit of it from behind the corner, it can neither grab you nor be hit by you. Yet you can still see it, which warns you of danger beforehand. Unlike the previous scenario, there are mostly untouched rooms in the basement with some stored food and wine. In the end there is once again a lab, this time overgrown with crimson ivy. Another result of an experiment gone wrong. And the old book on alchemy is now in much more capable hands. It's also possible that the farm is neither burnt nor overgrown by plants. This one looks pretty normal, just abandoned. The cellar is fine too, but of course there was a reason why a farmer and his family ran away. And this time it's the chimera. It looks like a 2-headed goat and probably used to be a regular animal. Now it's incredibly aggressive, and its 4-eyed stare causes terror, reducing your melee damage by 1. Unless you're wearing sinister gauntlets, this makes it 0. Though, as I said before, melee was never a valid option against real opponents, and this debuff is more a reminder than a game changer. Regardless, this can probably be considered a mini-boss encounter. But at least until the chimera, this scenario is a lot safer than the alternatives. As with the other cases, in the end you find the abandoned lab, where the farmer has probably made a goat into a monster. For the final part, I'd like to show off some new decorations that our artist has made. Here is the shelf behind the counter of Ricardo's tavern, with a lot of small items of everyday use. And this is the writing desk that is soon going to serve as a new crafting station, but for now just adds to the room. And with all of this, my list of updates comes to an end. I will keep it in new areas for now, and the next feature planned is tied to this not yet usable writing desk. I'd like to thank everyone who's been following the project for all this time. Your interest gives me a reason to go on, and if you've only just learned about the game, I suggest that you subscribe for future updates, or you could go and play the current public version. I also have a Twitter, where I often post in development screenshots, so you can visit that one too. See you in the next video.